Hey, everybody, and welcome back to another Mainstream Monday on Horror Film Lovers. I'm your host, Jonathan Moody, and I've got my co-host here. How you doing, John Ward?
I'm doing good. How are you? Thanks for having me back for a fourth time with this series.
Yes, fourth time talking about the Scream series. And so this one was a lot of fun to watch. Again, I hadn't seen it in a while, and I was wondering why I hadn't seen it in a while. I kind of realized why. The ending to me is just, ugh. We'll talk about that, but later. Let's get into that later. But what did you think of this movie?
It's one of my favorite ones. I love Scream 4. I can watch it over and over again.
Okay. Yeah, I enjoy Scream 4, but I do you even like the ending? Do you think the ending was the perfect way to end it?
Me, like the motivation for why the whole thing happened.
That was bad to me. Like, I mean,
I loved every part of part 4. I really don't have any complaints. I have a massive crush on Emma Roberts, so I can watch her and be perfectly fine with it. I think that the motivation of it and everything is at the time was current. So yeah, I mean, I like the ending. I mean, it's I haven't heard too many bad things about part 4. Everybody seems to hate the ending to part 3.
Well, okay, so first of all, I watched this like behind the scenes after I watched it, and Emma Roberts talked about like how she almost didn't go to the audition, and then she was like, "Yeah, I gotta go to the audition." She nailed it, and she got it, and she was really excited. She like screamed, like scream, when she got it, and I don't even think she knew that she would be the killer in Scream. She just knew she booked a gig being in Scream. Like, who doesn't want to be in the new Scream movie? Even celebrities want to, would love to do that, or
Right.
whatever. So I dig that. I dug that it was Emma Roberts because she was very kind of famous for being in like, I think Nancy Drew at the time. She was Nancy Drew and some other stuff she had done. Did you know her beforehand?
I want to say yes. I've always liked her, but it's once she started getting into the horror stuff, like doing Scream Queens and some other stuff where I really started to like her. And then I could just, she's in something, I would check it out. So not in like a pervy way, type of thing. It's just one of those things where I just really like her as an actress. And I don't know, I just dig her in that type of way that it's, I just like what she does. So it's so she's one of my favorites. She would be up there on my list of people that I would watch a movie because she's in it.
Okay, cool. I dig her too. And I dig her whole family, the Roberts family. They're amazing, all of them. Her father, her aunt, all of that.
I could live without her aunt, so that's fine by me. I've never liked Julia Roberts at all, so I think she's made one good movie. Has she made one good movie?
I don't know. Everybody likes Pretty Woman. I don't know.
It's crap.
And everybody likes Mystic Pizza. So I mean,
and that's crap. So no, I'll take Eric Roberts and Emma Roberts. So I'll leave Julia Roberts out.
Well, I love their whole family. Whatever. I don't care. I'm completely different in that, and with you. But so yeah. So let's talk about the beginning of the film. Beginning of the film starts with, I guess, the beginning of watching Stab 6 and 7. I don't, which one was it? Was it 7 or 6? I don't know. Or was it like a mishmash of both of them together?
Well, yeah, because it keeps going backwards. No, so yeah, I think that they're, well, yeah, because doesn't it starts with the two girls watching, let's say it's 6, and then that goes then to the other two girls
watching,
who are then
7.
watching. I don't think.
I think they were watching. Wait, they were watching. What were they? They were watching 5, I guess, because the next people were watching 6, and then it turned out to be Stab 7. Because Stab 8 was the one that is part of the next movie, right? So
Well, yeah, eight's in the new Scream. Yeah. Yeah. Stab 8.
confusing. So confusing. So
It doesn't make sense. Kind of like a lot of the beginning of the Stab movies or Scream movies don't make sense, because now you're ruining it, because then there is no sequels.
yeah. So like which
So
one was
if
the
the
sequel?
Yeah, because if you're doing the meta joke thing of, oh, it's like a movie within a movie within a movie, every time you mention like a stab number, it removes it from the real world of Scream.
Yeah.
Because then it just gets confusing. Like you can't, if the actual people watching the movie, let's say it is Stab 5,
Right.
and then that goes to them watching the fake people doing Stab 6, and then that goes to the fake people watching Stab 7, that would knock those movies out, I would think, because then it becomes confusing if Hollywood made a real Stab 6 and 7. It wouldn't make sense to the movie. It's funny and I like it. I can appreciate it. I dig it. But I guess logic wise, it doesn't make a lot of sense. You know, maybe they should have been watching a ripoff or something like that. Like maybe they should be watching, you know, not Stab, but maybe watch Stabbed.
Yeah.
You know, something like that. Like, oh, this is a ripoff on Stab. You know, kind of like how there were many ripoffs on Scream.
Well, I'm surprised they didn't do that. You're right, because there have been, we've talked about it before, but there was like Final Stab, and there's you know, I just watched a ton of like movies that have the teen Scream, you know, thing labeled to them, you know, which was created by Scream. Scream created teen Scream, you know, subgenre, which are just slashers made for teens that have, you know, that you're wondering who the killer is, you know, mystery slashers or whatever. But I just watched Adam and Evil. That'll be going on 31 Days of Indie Horror. We've done Shredder, you know, we've done a ton of these movies that are just sort of the same, you know, they're just a killer in a mask, and you have to figure out who the killer is by the end of it, you know. So
well, especially the ones with posters that just rip off Scream.
Yeah, with the people in the back, you know, just like this one, where the people, just the floating heads, you know. David Dakota did a lot of that, even if it wasn't like a slasher, you know. It was just, you know, he was the one who did Final Stab or whatever. I'm sure you know that, but you know, just letting other people know that. But like, he was the one who did that, because, which you've talked about, I think, before. It was originally called Final Scream. Then Scream sued them, and or the Miramax sued them, and they said, okay, we're going to call it Final Stab. And then they're like, can get away with that one.
Yeah, I guess overseas, it's still called Final Scream.
They could have just called it Stab, and then they can't get in trouble for that, can they?
No, I guess if you're just calling the film Stab, then maybe, you know, Miramax or Dimension would have a problem with that. But since it's Final Stab, you know, because there've been other stuff like for Jaws, there was the film Great White, which Spielberg banned in the US, which is still banned technically, was originally called like Jaws Returns, Final Jaws, The Last Shark. I mean, everything to kind of make it like a Jaws sequel.
Wasn't there one called like Mako Jaws of Death or something like that? So there was.
Yeah, that's with the Mako shark. Yeah.
Yeah. So it was like they tried so hard.
Whoa, what's happening over there?
I don't know. But they tried so hard to do that, you know, right? Like they tried so hard to kind of do a ripoffs, you know, of certain movies, you know.
Well, yeah, and Mako Jaws of Death, of course, they obviously put Jaws in there for a reason, you know. Yeah. So which is why you want Final Stab, is so people then go, oh, Scream, Stab, and then you rent, you know, that's what you rent out.
Originally that's why they probably wanted Final Scream, because then people go, oh, this must be the new Scream movie because it's called The Final Scream, you know.
Well, yeah, because the So there obviously isn't a stab in part one. Stab one is in Scream 2. Stab 3 is in part 3. So where do they start with this one, with the stab films? Is it Stab 4, or do they jump it?
Oh, yeah, they jump it to like, I think it's got to be 6 and 7 or whatever. I don't see, that was the thing. I don't. We're getting off. We're getting off here because it's like it's almost like a loop.
Well, because then you got to figure it out for part 4. Like what stab movie would they be up to? Because they're having a stab marathon. Right. So how many stab movies are they going to be playing in their marathon?
Seven, I believe. And here's the thing that I think what they were sort of hinting at in Scream 4, I almost call it Stab 4. Scream 4 is that like it took how many years before, like 11 years? I think it was 11 years between Scream 3 and Scream 4 before they did a new one.
That sounds right. Yeah.
Yeah. It's 2011 that this came out. And I remember because I was working at a movie theater at the time that this came out, because this came out around the same time that Thor came out. And I remember those two specific movies when I was working there because I wanted to go see both of those. This movie came out 2011. Scream 3 came out in 2000 exactly. And so it was 11 years. And it was saying like in those 11 years, there's been like, I don't know, Scream Stab 3 to Stab 7. So there have been 4 movies. So probably like at least one every 2 or 3 years, right? Which would have happened if Kevin Williamson and Wes Craven wanted to continue doing that.
Well, they did. I mean, Wes was going to make 2 more films. He was going to do 5 and 6, but he died. So that was going to be done, but unfortunately, yeah, he passed away. So, that's why I wonder, like, if for the Stab films, if we're talking from 3 to 4, if it's like 10 years, and if Stab 3 is in part 3, and then that means that they didn't make any Stab movies from 4 to 5. I mean, they had Stab 8, but is that it? Like that was the only film that was made from 4 to 5?
What do you mean? There's been 7 movies. That's what it started at. That's what they were showing. Those people were watching.
But what you're saying is Stab. They're watching. Okay, but you're saying if we're going off the beginning of Scream 4. How many movies are like, what film are they watching? What number are they watching?
I'm saying it's Stab 7. That's what I think it is.
Okay, so that means from Scream 4 to Scream 5, they only made 1 movie.
No.
And that'd be Stab 8.
They made all.
What? But you're just saying the one that they're watching is Stab 7.
Right. So are you saying, fuck, I keep thinking you're talking about from 3 to 4. You're talking about from 4 to 5. They've only made 1.
Yes, I'm trying to figure out. You've seen part 4 more recently than I have. So okay. I'm trying to figure out how many Stab films have been made, because we only know there's 3 in the original trilogy. There's 3 Stab films. Mm-hmm. How many Stab films are there in part 4? We know that there's only 1 in part 5. That's part 8.
Well, what I'm saying is like, it's as if they had actually been making the Stab movies, even though in that period of time, that 11 years, because it is like 11 years later, right? Like this is supposed to be 11 years after Sydney has felt sort of safe and everything's fine, right? And now all of a sudden there's a new killer when she's written this book, and everything. And she's, all of a sudden she's coming to the town. So, all of us started from that, right? And
okay. So I got it right here. Okay, so it says The Stab film series is a fictional series of 8 slasher films
Right.
in the franchise. So that means 1, 2, and 3. There's only Stab 1, 2, and 3.
Right.
Stab 4 then must have 4, 5, 6, 7.
Yep. So 4
And then
movies.
and then Scream 5 has 5 films have been made, over the course of that 10 years or whatever. And then Scream 5 has Stab 8.
Which they keep kind of talking about like it's been hinted that there's been trouble, but we'll get into that later.
Well, because it goes completely off track, like the Friday the 13th movies. I think that's the joke. But we'll talk about that in part 5. Yeah.
Yeah. So there's been 4 movies. So I mean, maybe they jumped the shark a little bit with making it have that many movies, and then they should have probably, at least made it be like that. Because it's been from 2011 to 2022. There should have been at least 4 more, stabs. But I guess they took a break. They should have said in Stab 5 or Scream 5 that the director, the newest director, died, and they didn't want to make another one for a while, because that would have been a homage.
I mean, I don't know if bringing up Wes's death, or kind of bringing something like that up would, if that would go over very well. But
but it would have been a nice.
But they do. I think it's part 4 where they mentioned that Gail died in the series. Like Gail Weathers died in part 6 or something. And then Gail goes, "I die." Oh yes, I think it's Dewey who tells her, that she died or something like that. She's like, "I died." She's clearly in 1 through 3.
Yep. Well, also, wasn't her? Wait. Who played her character? Was that what's her name?
That's Parker Posey.
Parker Posey didn't die, did she? I'm trying to remember.
Well, the character died.
Yeah, I mean,
the character that she's playing as Gail Weathers died. So, but if they're saying, well, Gail died in a film that we have never seen, let's say it's part 6, then it was played by a different actress.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I don't know.
Hence the new Texas Chainsaw Massacre film, where they decided to take a legacy character where the actress is dead and recast them so they look like the original actress and Laurie Strode.
Yeah, it was a combination of that. I agree. And you can actually hear our review of that on was it Dark Park Films reviews for was it two filmmakers reviewing one film.
Viewing one film, yeah.
All right, so let's get into more of the story again. So basically, Sydney's come back into town, and who's the girl at the beginning of the movie? What tie does she have to everything? Like what's the girl's name in it? You know what I'm talking about?
Well, there's 3 sets of girls, and I only recognize a couple of them. I think it's just to get the ball rolling. I don't think that there's an actual Sydney connection. It's just the anniversary. So Sydney comes back in town for the book signing on the anniversary.
Okay, so I'm remembering it now because it's been a little bit since I saw it. I saw it a couple weeks ago. But Jenny Randall was the character, and she was calling, or Marnie, one of them was calling. Both of them died, and they were calling using the phones, so they knew oh shit, she died. But I don't think they had any connection to Sydney at all or anything. They were just friends, except for the fact that they knew Sydney's cousin.
Yeah, I think it's just, like I said, just to kind of get the ball rolling. It wasn't that they had the same last names or really any connection. They went to school with I believe the Emma Roberts character.
Yeah. They went to school with her, so they're friends with her the cousin, which is Emma Roberts, and stuff. But they didn't have any other connection to it except maybe just Well, spoiler alert for anybody who hasn't seen the movie, but if you haven't seen the movie, I don't know why you're listening to our review. Go watch the movie first, come back and listen to our review. I say this in every review I do. Um, uh, was it I guess Emma Roberts just didn't care about those two characters.
No, she just wanted to be famous.
Yeah. So she was gonna kill all her friends, or whatever anyway.
Yeah, she said she doesn't need friends, she needs followers.
Yeah, which that's true. And it's true like of what people think today. I guess that's what Kevin Williamson was trying to say. Is he's on Twitter, by the way, Kevin Williamson. And so followers make sense, like there's a following. But yeah, so then we meet Nev Campbell, who again, we see her again. She comes in because she's coming to Woodsboro to promote her new book that she wrote about surviving, being a survivor and everything. And I'm surprised she came back. I mean, I keep getting surprised she keeps coming back, but then I'm like, they must be throwing more money at her, each time and being like, all right, because
yeah, I'm guessing. Well, maybe it for her it's not money. The agent that's with her wants it to be all about money.
I'm talking about Nev herself. Like she keeps coming back.
Oh,
period. Not Sydney.
Well, remember she said that she would do it as long as Wes Craven did it. As long as there was a good script and Wes Craven wanted to do it. And that's what almost stopped everybody from doing part 5 was that Wes wasn't there, but they thought the script was good enough. And this time I will say it probably is money. One, they were there for half the amount of time as the other cast. So it's just like, oh yeah, well, Nev Campbell, if you were on the set for Scream 4 for 15 days, you now only have to be on the set for 7, and we're going to give you a nice chunk of change, and that's probably all of them, got that, all the legacy people. So
exactly.
There's definitely reasons for coming back for part 5. And, but for this one, I think a lot of it had to do with Wes being there and Kevin Williamson being there, and that it was a good script. So I do find it funny that she's on this book tour, and Gail is stuck on what to write. Like she has writer's block, and I think that with her character, that she would probably be pissed that Sydney wrote a book that didn't include her, and that she's not making something off of this book.
Okay, so I have to ask you a question real quick, and I'm reading my notes. I actually did write notes, so I'm glad I did because I have more notes than I remembered. Who is Kate Roberts? That was Mary McDonald's character, the chick from Donnie Darko, the mother from Donnie Darko.
Mm-hmm.
Who is Kate Roberts in relation to Sydney? Is she her aunt? Or is she a cut? Like that was because Emma Roberts was the cousin, Jill Roberts. Right,
and she played the mom.
Right. Is she the aunt or is she a cousin? Like, did you get that? Because like, if she was
well,
aunt, there was no aunt. She never called her aunt something.
Technically, she would be an aunt. Because my uncle had 2 kids and they're my cousins.
Right. So they never say aunt.
So when I go over to visit them, I'm their cousin.
So one thing that like really annoyed me in this whole thing was how much like the family just didn't even seem like they even knew each other, And I'm like thinking, where was her aunt the whole time before? Like this was the first time we even hear that she even had an aunt,
I mean, I guess they assume that most people do have aunts and uncles, and you're not always going to be talking about them. And maybe with the first 3 movies, just Neb, we know from part 3 that she keeps her distance. But she doesn't want people around her.
Right. But she also, like, the aunt still lives in Woodsboro, right? This isn't like an aunt who lives in like Mexico or something, that just came back to to see her, see her niece. This is an aunt that's lived in Woodsboro whole life, and you would have thought that at some point, there would have been a talk about, an aunt if she actually had an aunt that still lived in Woodsboro. It just seemed very convenient.
I don't necessarily know if you. I don't think that you necessarily need to name off your entire family. I mean, people have family members,
I don't know. It's just very confusing on that. And then
if you really want to, if you really want to get technical about it, yeah, I mean, with like part 2 and 3, if Sydney is being attacked, then the police might then go, okay, then maybe the killer will target other people in her family. Mm-hmm. Let's make sure that they're okay. But right. I would just assume that she probably has other family members, just like her dad has family members and the mom has family members. I mean, why not talk to the mom's family members?
If they still live in Woodsboro, yeah. But see, this is just something that seemed very convenient for the story. All of a sudden now there's an aunt that, and her cousin who now, wants to get followers and, is doing all of this because Sydney's coming back home and she can do it. Like, what if Sydney had never showed up, for the book tour?
Then maybe the film would have never happened.
Right. It's always that one moment of like, I guess because you said this on one of the last ones. I think it was the last one. But you mentioned that they sort of write it in while they're writing, right? Like all the scenes are coming together while they write it. So that's sort of what it feels like in this one for sure. Is that like, okay, this seems convenient, so let's write it like this.
Well, I guess you could say that because the book tour is going there, that the Emma Roberts character is that she even mentions it, that she's tired about Sydney. It's like Sydney this, Sydney that, and that she wants to be, it's like her time to be famous. So she uses that to her advantage and starts killing the people around her. But let's say Sydney avoided that place, then maybe the killings would have happened anyways.
Well, because it happened before Sydney showed up anyway, right? So
but book tours are done in advance. So I mean, there's that book. What they show you at the bookshop could have been put up a month early,
right? So it could have been like, oh, my cousin's coming to town, and then what is it? Rory Culkin and Emma Roberts, cook up the scheme together to go and murder her. I mean, I guess like I would go with that. Yeah. Probably what happened.
And how much better would the plan be if they could kill Sydney?
Right.
That would be like the ultimate treasure in a way,
the final girl finally gets killed, Yeah.
And then Emma Roberts takes over for that. And then she could write her own book, and then she could have her own TV movie or whatever. They could do a stab reboot based on her character.
But
I think it would have happened even without her. Yeah, sure.
Which I think was a really cute thing of them calling her basically a survivor, the whole time, because now it makes you think of like the final girl title being called the Survivor Girl. They're especially after surviving this like 3 times before, and now this is the 4th time.
Unless you're the final girl in Friday the 13th Part 2.
The one that didn't survive the second one.
Because then she dies right at the beginning.
Well, you could say that Scream is probably one of the only movies where it is a survivor girl, like, because most of the time the final girl survives but is never seen again, in most of these things. But I think
I mentioned that before, where Neve Campbell has said she'll come back to do the Scream movies as long as she's the survivor. That's how she sees the character. So she doesn't want to die in the first 10 minutes of a movie. I mean, remember that's how what's her face had an issue with Halloween 6.
Not well, obviously what the girl who died in the girl who died in Halloween 6 was not even the same girl that was in 4 and 5. So,
right. I'm blanking on her name.
Not Danielle Harris, but
Danielle Harris didn't want to come back because she thought that the character was, Jamie, that the character was treated horribly. So she's like, if I was in the whole movie, okay, or given a dignified death instead of being raped by allegedly Michael and then being murdered, then maybe they would have had her back. So I think that someone like Nev Campbell sees these type of things. And she, Friday the 13th part 2 or Halloween 6. And it's like, I don't want Sydney to go out that way. She's so maybe in since these guys are going to make 2 more movies, Nev will probably sign up. Maybe she dies in part 7.
She had said she never wants to die because she's afraid that if her character dies, it gives no hope to people,
Well, you have to have sacrifice. So I'm thinking if they give her sacrifice, kind of like what Jamie Lee Curtis did with Halloween Resurrection, where she sacrificed herself. She tried to kill Michael, but she was sacrificed. It's just you have to have a dignified death. Heather Langenkamp in Nightmare 3 has a more dignified death.
This is getting into Star Wars, the Disney Star Wars, thing where the first, was it the last part 5 of Scream had, we'll get into it. But if you haven't seen Scream 5, please turn off real quick. So we're about to talk about it real quick. But the newest Scream movie had Dewey's death, and then of course the next one after that is going to be most likely has to be Courtney Cox dying. So
I think so. I think that's the deal that they're going to make.
Right.
Yeah, I think kind of 7, like Harrison Ford.
That's what I'm saying. And then they were originally probably gonna. It made no sense that they kept anybody alive in the Last Jedi. They should have just killed off Leia in Last Jedi, and then
that's a whole other video. So I won't even start down that rabbit hole. But it's
that's what I'm saying.
I think one of the ways that they got David Arquette back is they said you die in part 5, and he's like, well, is it a good death? Is it a dignified death? And they're like, yes, yeah, you go out fighting, and so that's how they got him back. Now to get Courtney Cox back, it will be. Maybe she does die, or maybe she doesn't die until part 7. But at some point, I think that she is going to die. I really think so.
So to go back to Scream 4, because I know we go off into little tangents to talk about the other movies and everything. But and so Jill and her friends are all hanging out, and everybody says this, so I'm not original on this, but fucking Kirby's my favorite.
Kirby's awesome.
My favorite. I'm not the only one who thinks that. Thank God, because even if I were the only one, I would say fuck you, because she is the best character. She's so much fun and she's likable. She's sweet. She likes the nerd, even though it took her till the end of whatever, for her to and she probably survived. There's no real. There was supposedly going to be things in part 5 that showed that she was still alive, I guess, but I didn't see any fact or anything.
Well, just the thing, just on YouTube, just that little thumbnail up in YouTube.
What? Was that in part 5?
Yeah.
What happened?
When they're watching the trailer for part 8, for Stab 8, up in the right-hand corner, there's a video about Kirby.
Kirby living?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I did because I watched that movie twice and I can't see shit when I'm fucking too far behind. So I can't pay attention to the fact that I saw them watching the movie, or the trailer, but I couldn't see the fucking thumbnail, you know. So I did not know that.
I missed it because I was watching the Stab 8 thing, and then I went on to and then I looked at like Easter eggs and stuff on YouTube, and then they kind of circle it.
See, that's the thing. Like, yeah, I mean, those people do. I love those guys, by the way. People who do Easter eggs and show off the shit that we missed, you know, because unless I have it on a home video and I can pause it, I'm gonna miss shit. There's just, you know, sometimes I just can't see everything that's on screen, you know, in a theater, you know. So
well, and that's going to be the good thing. Hopefully, when the Blu-ray comes out and they have audio commentary, because I'm wondering if there is any mention of Stu. He did way too many interviews, you know, along with, you know, with Skeet to not have something in the film. I mean, obviously his house,
or something.
Yeah, like maybe there's a newspaper article, or there's something on YouTube or something that talks about his character.
Yeah,
this is some itty bitty little, you know, kind of like where am I looking? Like behind me, I have a concert poster, so. One of the characters could be doing this, and back there's something about Stu that you would really have to pay attention to. So I'm hoping that, because that was the rumor for a year or so. So well that's part 5 stuff. Yeah. That's all part 5 stuff.
We're still doing that. So it's like, you know, that's the thing. Part 4 does go into part 5 pretty much. I mean, they did a good job, I think, of like of doing that. So to go back to, you know, all the friends hanging out. I did like every single one of them. I liked all 3 of the girls. The only problem I had with Jill was she was hard to read at times, you know. And that was made specifically for her character to be the killer at the end. But, you know, while you're watching,
she's cold.
She's cold, but then at times she's not cold. So she's like, you know what I mean? Like at one point she's cold to her sister or her cousin. Then the next second she's hugging her cousin. So it's like throwing me off. Like, what, you know?
Well, yeah, I think it's that mentality that she has of you know, because everything of her, you know, maybe hugging Sydney or whatever is fake.
Right.
You know, because she's so tired of being in her shadow. But she has to be, you know, but she plays nice because, you know, it's all fake.
Okay. So,
or maybe she does mean some of it, you know, but she's.
Well, okay. I want to go to next. I want to talk about the agent because you talked about her briefly, you know, before, but Allison Brie is by far Paul presents as like #1 crush, like period, you know, like
she's hot. Yeah, she's good and stuff. I like her a lot. Yeah,
and she's always funny and adorable, you know, and everything. But I think she was in Community, and that's how he fell in love with
Community.
her.
She's also in WoW, the
Women of Wrestling
HBO series. Yeah. So which was good, and then, she's been in some other stuff too.
Yeah, Glow was the movie.
Glow. That's what I'm thinking. Glow. Yeah.
And so they were like wonderful. Then, but that line of the tarnished brand scene is probably one of my favorite scenes of the whole movie. Just her saying, you know, like she thought she was giving, you know, was it Gail some little tips on her brand, you know, her tarnished brand. And she was like, I'm going to give some tips on I'm going to tarnish your brand. And, you know, and that line just out of that, and everything just was so Gail and was so perfect. I loved that they were married, that Gail and Dewey were married and, you know, still having issues together, you know, being married. That was part of what I didn't like about 5, and we'll get to that later. Because I love them being married. Like I want more of that shit, you know?
Well, a lot of Scream and Friends mimicked their life. I mean, their real life. I mean, a lot of that stuff, like, you know, Monica wanting to get pregnant, but she couldn't on Friends was real. That's, you know, Courtney Cox could not get pregnant, you know, while they were married. That's why if you watch Friends near the end, Courtney Cox gains a bunch of weight because she's on medication to get pregnant. And so I'm not picking on a woman. Chandler also gets big because he's on drugs. So they even have a whole episode about him gaining weight. So I guess a lot of Scream mimics their relationship.
I guess because they were divorced in real life, or whatnot, and still working together, and probably still loved each other in some way or another. In part 5, whatever, that was the thing for that. But they were married. Were they married and actually divorced in real life when in part 4? When did they get divorced?
Yeah, that you would have to look up. I believe they met on Scream, and then David Arquette had the cameo where he's following around Phoebe for a few episodes.
Right.
And then Courtney Cox became Courtney Cox Arquette. And they even made a joke about that on the show where it said like Jennifer Aniston Arquette, and it was, everybody had the Arquette name for like one episode. And then it was all about Chandler and Monica having the baby, and they couldn't get pregnant. And that mimicked her in real life. And then that's where I mentioned that she gained weight because she was taking the pills to get pregnant. And then they got divorced while she was still on the show. So I think they might still be married on Scream 2.
Yep. So okay.
And then get married and then divorced on 3.
So they did not get married on Scream 2. They were married right before Scream 3. They got married in 1999. So was it June 12th, 1999? And they lasted till May 28th, 2013. So interesting that you mentioned that the Scream paralleled their lives, because they got married at the end of Scream 3, right? Like proposed at the end of Scream 3, right? So they got married, and then they were still married in Scream 4, right? But they were having troubles and issues, and that was probably what was actually happening in real life. And then part 5, they are divorced. And so that's interesting. I never thought about that, but like, I wonder if that was on purpose, and maybe that's in their contract or something. I don't know.
I mean, it's maybe. I mean, I got respect for Courtney Cox because of Friends, because she did mimic her life on the show.
Now you got even more respect for her for the Scream.
I've always liked her. I got a crush on her from, the Bruce Springsteen video where she, he brings her up on stage and all of us were like, who's that? She's really cute, and then, when I saw that she was on Friends, and then she was in Masters of the Universe, and it's just like, oh, that's the girl for the Bruce Springsteen video. And then she got onto Friends, and I actually watched Friends because of her.
Yep.
So, and then Jennifer Aniston, the whole thing with that happened with Leprechaun, and then, oh, that's the girl from Leprechaun. It's,
all of them, yeah. I don't know what Lisa Kudrow was doing before then, but anyway.
No, but Matt LeBlanc had Ed. Like all of them kind of had those movies that they didn't want to admit to.
Ed was after Friends. So
are you sure? I think Ed was before. You're looking everything up, so let's check it. I think Ed was on the shelf and was brought out because of the success of Friends.
Maybe that might be true.
Because there were a few of those, all of a sudden Leprechaun got rebranded because of Jennifer Aniston.
All right, I'm looking this up because, nope. Ed watches an episode of Friends, the show that made Matt LeBlanc a star. The scene he watches introduces Marcel, the pet monkey of one of the characters. He appeared in the first 2 seasons in the storyline or whatever. So yeah, it was after. I had a feeling it was after.
So the film was made while he was doing Friends, but came out afterward. But see, because I know it sat on the shelf for a while.
But see, that makes sense because he was a fucking star at that time, right? So he gets this big fucking movie. He thinks, I'm gonna be like fucking Clint Eastwood and work with the fucking pet monkey, and everybody's gonna love me because who doesn't love monkeys? And stuff. And then
or sell the Outbreak monkey.
It bombs. Well, yeah. But see, hey, everybody still loved Outbreak, even though it's fucking stupid. So we, you see what I'm saying? Like, it's one of those things where it was like a bomb, because, and that might be on Hollywood Knockbusters at some point, because it's sort of perfect for that. I think it was a terrible bomb because it just was stupid, and not as clever as what the people expect from the guy who plays Joey from Friends.
So, excuse me. So now, where do you think the for part 4? Why do you think the younger cast was picked? So we have our legacy people; they're already established. Obviously, we're on film 4. What about the actors that play the younger cast?
Well, no, I think that I don't know. I've heard different things, right? I've read different things, and I've heard different stuff online. I think the original idea was the idea that they're doing now, which is like they're trying to pass the torch, right? They even mentioned that in part 5, pass the torch, whatever. So they were trying to pass the torch to a new generation. Problem is, they killed off all the kids. So like, if they had even left Jill alive, she would have to basically get a new group of friends to go and kill each time, and then it wouldn't be as much fun, because then we know who the killer is, unless they did the thing where I heard that they were going to have Jill be stalked by a person playing Ghostface, and all of a sudden, like all of a sudden it's the killer versus another killer, which is a pretty neat concept. However, they killed off Jill, and I didn't. That's what I didn't like about the ending. I felt like, what would they decide to do if they want to do 4, 5, and 6? Like, where would they have gone from there? They would have had to create completely new people who are dealing with this stuff,
I mean, it's possible that they could bring Stu back. I mean, Stu's been in the mix the whole time. We just haven't seen him.
I hate that. I am not a big fan of that. Like, that just pisses me off that I hear that Stu's alive. Stu is fucking dead. I'm sorry.
I would say he's dead. Sure. I would agree.
I have a TV in my room in here. If that shit fell on my head when it was still on and everything, it would fucking kill me. I'm sorry. I don't believe that Stu is alive, but.
Well, my guess would be if Wes was to do 5 and 6, that they probably had some sort of idea. I mean, I don't think that they would just go, oh yeah, let's make 5 and 6, and then not have some little kernel of where is this going to go if we're going to do, because Scream 4 didn't make the money that they wanted it to.
And didn't he get shot again too, Stu? At the end, even? He still came back.
What's that?
Right at the end of the movie, when they shot Billy, right? Right at the end of Scream 1, they shot Billy. Then Stu came out as like the surprise person, and they shot him a bunch of times and still killed him again. Like, he's dead. There's no way he can still be alive.
They've said that the fan rumor is that Stu is in prison. He's the one who got a hold of Roman. Right. They concocted this, and then Roman got a hold of Billy. Billy, of course, brought Stu along. So they're saying that Stu's the mastermind of this whole thing, and he's doing it all from prison. And I mean, because a lot of people go off the theory that Stu is in part 2. Matthew Lillard is in part 2 as a joke in the party scene. I've never been able to see him, and I've paused plenty of times.
I've tried to find him too. I can't find him, but apparently he was there. So I could find Wes Craven in part 3 more than I could find, whatever. But it's, it just pisses me off that there's that rumor, that idea, and they've never actually shown it, and so I don't believe it's true. And so when I hear this crap, like, oh, that they were going to have Stu be the mastermind in prison, it just pisses me off, because, like, don't do that. Don't bring Stu back. Like, the Billy thing, whatever, but don't do Stu, because Stu doesn't make any sense. And if you,
but there has to be something. He interviewed way too much, unless he, I've heard Matthew Lillard is a nice guy. I actually got to rent him a tuxedo when I worked at Men's Warehouse. And I've heard only good things about the guy. So maybe because it's Stu's house in part 5, maybe because there's those references to Stu, that he was willing to go out and do interviews and stuff with Skeet, and maybe throw people a little off the track, that, that he was willing to do that. Maybe he got paid for it. Who knows?
Right.
But it just seems like there's way too much stuff involving Stu for him not to be a bigger part. And if they are doing 2 more films, like you said, what are they going to do?
I mean, I like the idea of a cult of, Ghostface or whatever, that was the original idea, or whatever. And I like that idea. Like, good for that. I do not like, but it does not need to be Stu that runs it. It can just be a person that wants to be famous, like Jill had wanted to be famous and have followers. But it's just, I'm sorry. I went off on a little thing, but I get really heated about that, because I will, if I hear in part 6 or 7 that Stu is alive, I'm gonna freak out, because I'm gonna be like,
I don't think it's any worse than Billy. I don't think it's any worse than Billy.
We'll get into that in the next one.
Oh yes,
very soon.
Yes. But I mean, you go back to Scream 4. I just love Scream 4. And I think that if it went from Scream to Scream 2 to Scream 4, I would be very happy. And to me, it would be a great trilogy. And I think the whole thing of the book tour is great. I think, Gail going off and being a reporter. I like the, doing stuff on her own. I like all this stuff with like the film students, doing their live broadcasts. I like Jill's motivation behind it, because that's just what these teens do. It's all about the views. It's all about the, the likes,
It's all about the Benjamins, baby.
Yeah. Well, hey, Shane Dawson made that horrible movie called Smiley. And the whole thing behind that is it's all about the lulls. It's all about the LOLs. Right. That was what the whole movie was about. And he's a horrible person, and the movie was a horrible movie. But yeah, he's a big influencer on YouTube, like a big creator, which I don't understand. But
I've seen his movie Not Cool, and I actually liked it. So
garbage. Okay.
Have you seen it?
Most of it. I don't need to watch the rest of it. I knew it wasn't going to get any better. So but it's I think their motivations are fine. We both love Kirby, and I think everybody loves Kirby. So if she did come back, I don't think that would bother me.
I'd be okay with, because it's an off-screen death sort of thing where you don't know whether or not she survived, and they just never say anything. It would have been nice if at the end David Arquette had said Kirby was still alive too, because maybe she was at another hospital or something, and
they could easily shoot something of her being brought out on a gurney, just if they wanted to answer it, they could have a news reporter that just says Kirby, what's her face, is with us today. She's one of the survivors.
Yep, that's a good idea.
Massacre.
That'd be a good idea. And it would, I hope they wouldn't do the Cotton Weary thing and just kill her off in the first 10 minutes of the movie, after her surviving,
no, because she could easily replace Gail. So, you have Gail, halfway through, and then Gail gets killed off in the next one. And then you bring Kirby in, and then Kirby kind of takes over that being the younger person,
Okay.
And then maybe ends
We're giving them ideas for part 7. So we better get some credit for that shit.
Yeah. I've already said I'll sue people. So, but I guess because this is Scream, you can't really sue that much. So we don't even own it. But I just think Scream is just a good Deputy Judy. We haven't even mentioned, her yet, because she's in 5
we haven't. Too. But honestly, in part 4, I hated her. Like, she was so obnoxious.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
She just had like this little kind of fixation, this little obsession thing going with Dewey. And I like that. I like their relationship.
Yeah, which is kind of weird because when she took over as sheriff, she hated Dewey then, and it sort of didn't make any sense. Maybe there's something extra there that I don't know what the fuck happened.
Well, I don't think she likes what he became. She became a cop because of him, and oh well, she didn't become a cop because of him, but she rise through the ranks because of him.
Right.
That she was his.
Well, also, I didn't like that she was a
he
deputy.
was her influence.
She was a deputy, yet she was bossing other people around. And I was like, what? Like, she'd have to be like a sergeant or something, in order to like.
Well, she's just, she's showing authority, showing that she's a strong person. She wants to be sheriff. She wants to move up. Right. So she's, and she makes snickerdoodles. So, you can't be.
I don't know. I love Marley Shelton. Don't get me wrong. I've loved her ever since I first saw her as a lifeguard and fucking was it Sandlot, and everything. So I adore her. Her character to me and Scream 4 was sort of like, you're right. Like she was really into Dewey and she was kind of not she did not like Gale. And so she was like, he's busy right now, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, they had to have another person kind of in between those two or whatever. And I didn't like it. I didn't dig that part,
Did not bother me at all. Yeah. Did not bother me.
I mean, funny how.
I mean, it's nice having two women fight over Dewey. Like the guy's named Dewey. He's lucky to get one woman to fight over him.
Yeah, but he's also David Arquette, and David Arquette's awesome. I've heard great things about him. And I have not met him.
I've heard very weird things about him, like his obsession with wrestling and stuff like that. That he's just, if you watch interviews with him, he's doesn't seem to be entirely there. He may be a nice guy, but he doesn't seem to be 100% there.
And which also makes it works really well for Dewey, because he's sort of also a little not there, and it works really well.
Well, he's like Barney Fife, like from Andy Griffith. He's the, Don Knotts. He's got that kind of Barney Fife thing going with him that, his sister doesn't even respect him as a cop.
Yeah. Well, you know what?
But he gains that respect.
But you know what? Gail wrote the book on this.
She did. And now she's going to write a book about a cop.
The end. That was great. No, that was the end of part 5. Yeah. But yeah, give it all up, man. Cause that's all she wants to do is write her next book, and get, more money.
Apparently she only makes money off of one book, even though she's written 2. I harp on that. So.
I know. She doesn't talk about the other book. Maybe the other book didn't make money. Maybe the Woodsboro book was the one she got more.
One line. They just needed one line in any of these movies where they say, "Do you think your first book will be made as a prequel?" So anything, just one throwaway line, because why wouldn't it?
Maybe that's what we're missing, the prequel story. How Billy.
Yeah, if Stab was a huge hit, which apparently it was because they had 8 movies. Why would you then not buy the book that Gail wrote first to make the prequel?
That would be.
They did it with Amityville Horror.
That would be a good fan film. People talk about doing like a Scream fan film. But why not do like a fan film that's a prequel to everything that happened, and say it was like negative Stab or something? Like it's
Stab Zero.
Stab Zero. Right? Where it's like the beginning and it's how the whole thing came to be. And, and you can have whoever you want play, those characters or whatever, but they're the younger versions of who would have, went on to play Billy and whatnot. I know. But anyway, once again, giving ideas out there to the world.
Stop that.
Well, I'd only do that because I would never make a fucking fan film. And if somebody wants to go make a fucking fan film of this, go right the fuck ahead. And that's my, there's my 2 cents. That would be the fan film I want to see, that I would actually watch, but I would never make. 'Cause I'm too busy making my own original shit, including my reviews. But that's a whole different. Then we could do a whole video on my hatred for fan films. There you go. And that's the thing, like this following, I guess, would have had her, the idea that maybe people do fan films about Jill, and she would have gotten more famous from all these fans, and followers, who loved her because she survived the massacre, even though she's the one who caused it.
Well, yeah, because all the reporters are wrong. Near the end of the film, they're saying that she is the survivor, and while they're reporting how great Jill is, she's trying to kill Sydney in the hospital.
Right, exactly. And I just love the scene where she tries to kill herself, just like just like Billy and Stu, but except by herself. So she's doing she's putting the thing. It's just that's
well, yeah, and she does a great job. It seems really painful what she's doing. Kind of throwing herself on the glass table, stabbing herself with the knife. She really screams. I mean, it looks painful what she's doing, and it's. I like that they showed us that. I like that they kind of showed her, her develop that.
Like I said, I would have been okay with this movie. This movie would have been perfectly fine had it just ended with her at the hospital and realizing Sydney was still alive, right? And then I would have been okay with that. Like if he just said that, she's still alive, and then she gives that look, like I'm gonna go kill her.
But then that sets it up for a sequel that we never got.
But see, we didn't know we weren't gonna get it. We thought we were going to get 5 and 6.
So it was good. Well, they were planning it, but it was never, established. It was never, nobody ever said, oh yeah, they're going to make 5 and 6 back to back. It's, they never said that. It was just like, oh yeah, West, they were interested in making 5 and 6. And I think that's why they didn't do that, because each one you have to kill the killer in each one, just in case they don't make another one.
Established. That could be a title. I don't know. Somewhere.
Do you think he was killed because we're making Stab 3? You're making Stab 3. Oh yeah. Do you think his death had anything to do with this movie? You're making a film called Stab. He was stabbed.
Yeah. Lines like that. I love that shit. But here's the thing. Like if they had just had it like that, and then even if we never got the sequel, or whatever, Jill could have been a character that kept going on, and would have been interesting, Part 5, they could have still used Jill somehow or whatever, It just would be like, maybe there's more killings that have been happening that they've never caught the killer or something,
I mean, or not, because it's been so long, they would just go in a different direction. They just wouldn't even use her, and that would still be open-ended, and then we would get, which I don't like. I like that Stab is self-contained. Scream is self-contained. You could watch Scream and you're done. You don't need to watch the other ones. Part 2 is the same way. Part 3 is the same way. So I like that. So if they chose to only make one film, it would just have that ending. If they only chose to make 2, it would have a satisfying ending. If they chose not to make anything after Part 3, it's still a satisfying ending, even if people don't like it.
People didn't like it because because she won at the end, and then she was fine and safe.
No, I think they don't like like the one killer thing. I don't think a lot of people like the one killer thing.
I didn't like him at all, and we've talked about that. But I didn't like the idea of him. I liked most of that movie for whatever. That ending killed the movie for me. People say that sometimes an ending can make or break a movie, and I truly believe that for that part. I do like that it ended with her being safe and feeling like secure or whatever. Then I hear the story of like that tape was supposed to whatever, add some more shit to it, and it'd be like Randy at the end telling whatever, some other shit that's what they were going to be watching, and I'm like, that's ridiculous. I'm glad they cut that shit out. This Scream 4, like I said, I don't like the ending only because then it just leaves us going, what the fuck's going to happen in the next one? There's going to have to be a whole brand new group of people. And that's what they had to do.
Sure.
They had to bring in a whole new group of people. I thought it was going to be the whole idea of what they originally want to do is 4, 5, and 6. So does that mean every single movie is going to be self-contained with different people having to deal with? I don't like that. I hate that. The whole idea.
But why leave it open-ended when you can look? They didn't even know that they were going to make if this Scream was going to make any money. 4 was a disappointment, but 5 was huge. So that's when the studio said, okay, let's see about doing 2 more. You guys could do your own trilogy. And we just pray that it's not going in the same route as the Halloween trilogy is, where the first one is good and the second one sucks. And then hopefully, the third one is okay. And hopefully. So I don't mind. I think that's fine because you don't like the idea of Stu.
I don't. So,
okay, but you want open-ended.
Right. I want open-ended that makes sense. Like, to me, it doesn't make any sense to have Stu. It doesn't. Not at all. You can't kill off a character and then say he's completely alive, with being shot at and have a fucking, TV dropped on his head. Like, that's just, no. That's just.
I love how each film is just by itself. If you just want to watch Scream 3, you have a beginning, middle, and end, which is how all trilogies should be. It should tell a complete story, but each film has a beginning, middle, and end. And so 4 is kind of its own thing, and then 5, 6, and 7 will be its own thing. But I don't think that. You have people that survived in part 5.
Yeah, we'll
so
talk
they'll
about
be back
that.
for part 6.
All right. Well, I guess we talked a good amount about this movie, and we've had different theories and different issues with it or whatever. And actually, you love it, so I'm interested. I can't wait to.
Yeah, it sounds like I'm a bigger fan of it than you.
Look, I think it's cute. It's got some great moments to it. It's got some, it's funny at times. So it's got the Kevin Williamson quips and everything. I really, I dug that. Once again, it's an ending issue. And that's fine, because it didn't completely ruin it for me. I wish that Jill had survived, and at least give me a wink or something to let me know she's alive, or whatever, but she didn't.
But she doesn't deserve to survive. That's the thing. She deserves to die.
But she deserved this, I just don't like this idea.
Because then Jill, if she survived, then she would be in prison. And they would say, oh, well, she is orchestrating everything that happened in part 5.
No, that's not necessarily.
There'd be like a fan theory about that. Oh, well, we saw her hand slightly move at the end of part 4. Oh, so now she's in prison and she's orchestrating everything that happened in 5. There'd be that theory.
That would be true. They probably would do that instead of Stu theory. So I don't know. Whatever. Jesus Christ. I don't know. We'll talk about this later when we do our rankings and stuff. Maybe a little bit extra for it to talk about it, because we'll have to get into why we chose our specific movies in this certain order. All right. So thank you, John. Thank you for this. Everybody,
thank you.
Join us next week where we'll have a brand new episode. We'll talk about the last episode. And oh boy, I'm excited. Like I kind of can't wait to discuss this, because I know we're going to have just like this. I didn't think we'd be that far different, but you know what?
I thought you and I would be more agreeing on part 4, but okay. So that it's going to be interesting for part 5.
Oh, we're definitely not going to be agreeing on part 5, but this is going to be fun. All right. So thank you guys for checking us out. Check us out next week where Siskel and Ebert, John and I will be talking about our theories on Scream 5, the new Scream 2000 and
22.
Scree 5M.
Scream 5.
Scree 5M.
Like fan-tastic.
Yeah, exactly. Fantastic. That one, that kind of thing. So check us out when we talk about the next Scream movie or just Scream 2022. Thank you guys. Have a good one. Bye.
Bye.